"You smell that, boy? That's going to be the smell of your girlfriend," growled Uncle James to Gunther as the husky old man brought his middle and index fingers to the boy's nose as he finished filleting the flesh off a bluegill under the Arkansas midsummer sky. The hatchet hissed through the air from Gunther's sweaty hand and struck the oak tree 10 yards in front of him. Gunther couldn't believe how she'd left him, especially for that lanky redneck who looked like a dinosaur. Gunther imagined Jenny bouncing up and down on that sorry piece of garbage, and the visual only filled him with more rage and anger and hate. He hurled another axe at the tree, this time the blade sticking nearly an inch deep into the hardwood. He couldn't believe it. He wouldn't believe what that whore did to him, and that sorry excuse of a man. He should be tortured, and then left alive to think about what he did, eyeless and dickless. Black bears near Little Rock, Arkansas are ravenous, especially during the fall when food becomes scarce. They're often docile, timid creatures, especially compared to their large brown cousins. But at times, when necessary, they can be extremely dangerous and aggressive, and can easily overpower a man. A full-grown male black bear near Oak Forest in Little Rock can weigh over 700 pounds, but typically weigh closer to 400. Most of their diet consists of berries, fruit, sedges, and insects. They will also occasionally consume fish, honeycomb, and human food and garbage, and at times will even peel the flesh off a young man's skull. Gunther grew up in poverty. As early as 8, he was hunting rabbits and squirrels to help feed his family. His father was a lumberjack and a raging alcoholic, while his mother, Grace, stayed home to care for Gunther and his 4 siblings, and her husband when he was passed out on the floor. Gunther recently lost his girlfriend of 2 years. The young woman left him for another man, possibly due to Gunther's lack of ambition or lack of pursuit in higher education. He medicated himself with alcohol in order to ease the stress from his recent breakup, and found himself drunk, resting on the hard plank of his makeshift tree stand. Deep in the dense wooded forests of southern Arkansas, Gunther leaned over and puked the entire contents of his stomach onto the leaf-covered ground. What remained of his supper, Grace's specialty, chicken and dumplings, lay steaming in the pile of vomit at the base of the tree, emitting a foul but alluring odor to any onlooking opportunist. Gunther wiped his mouth on the sleeve of his flannel shirt, rinsed with a swallow of whiskey from his flask, and squinted into the darkening sky above the canopy. By his estimation, he had half an hour, or maybe a little more, until nightfall. The forest around him was still and silent, and darkness was falling quickly. So quickly, his vision was going dark. That couldn't be right. Before he knew it, the flask slipped from his hand, and everything went dark. The bear flinched as a small, hard thing fell from the tree and struck the back of his giant head. He pulled his snout from the fortuitous snack at the base of the tree and looked around. Nothing. There was a strong smell of human near the pile of food, but that was normal. It was human food. The bear turned happily back to the meal in front of him. Seconds later, a rustling coming from the tree above preceded a heavy, lumpy weight jumping directly onto the bear's back. Shocked and scared, the bear ran several paces away, then turned, growling, to face his attacker. A barely conscious Gunther lay at the base of the tree, in whatever was left of his vomited meal. He blinked a couple times, groaned, "Must have blacked out." 10 feet away, the bear pawed at the dirt beneath his paw and swung his massive furry head aggressively. Gunther blinked hard, trying to clear his vision and focus on the blurry black object in front of him. It smelled like wet dog and vomit, or was that him? Before he could form a coherent thought, the bear lunged forward and took a swipe with a heavy paw, catching Gunther's leg near the hip and ripping through his Carhartt jeans. The pain broke through Gunther's stupor, and in a moment of clarity, he reached for the shotgun strapped to his back and brought it quickly to his shoulder. The bear still swam in his drunk vision, and his hands felt weak, clumsy, but he pulled the trigger. Just once. He got one shot before the bear slammed into him again, closing its jaws around the gun and shaking it out of Gunther's hands. The 12-gauge landed uselessly on the ground several feet away. It was too far, Gunther knew. His leg was injured and now his arm, perhaps broken at the elbow. He rolled to his stomach and started to army crawl toward the gun. A huge weight landed on his shoulders, smashing his nose into the dirt and forcing the air from his lungs. The bear was on his back. He could feel the bacteria-ridden claw poking through the fabric of his shirt to his skin. The smell of wet dog and decay was almost overpowering. And with the pressure from the bear on his stomach, Gunther vomited again. He couldn't see the bear behind him, but he could hear the ragged breaths and deep inhales, as if the bear was savoring Gunther's rancid scent. He was so weak, too drunk and injured, and depressed to fight back. He closed his eyes and let his mind wander back to Jenny. Stupid bitch. Didn't know how good she had it with him. He never liked that dolphin tattoo of hers either. Wished he would have told her that when he had the chance. His thoughts were interrupted suddenly when the bear leaned down and closed its jaws around his nape, biting cleanly through skin, muscle, and bone to break Gunther's neck. Grace called the authorities when Gunther never made it back that night. It wasn't until the next day his body was discovered near his tree stand, partially eaten and abandoned in a shallow cache. A male bear was euthanized in the area, and analysis of the stomach contents, bits of plaid flannel, and cooked chicken effectively proved the individual as the perpetrator.